All right, guys, exciting video for you today. We will be doing a rebuild on this deck. This is the original deck that came with the house. House was built in '86. It is 2024, so this bad boy is 38 years old. I think it's safe to say that it has lived its life. It's time to send this thing on to glory. All right, as you can see here, the rails are completely shot. The stairs are completely shot. The deck boards are all completely shot, all rotted out, dried out. Not safe to walk on this thing. You walk out here barefoot, you're going to get a splinter. Knock on the wood, it's going to be hollow. Not sure what happened here. It looks like a cannonball went through this thing here, but here's a view from underneath. You can see all the joists are pretty much gone here. We'll get a little bit more of a better glimpse when I take the decking boards off. And then just a final overview before I actually start taking this thing apart here. Step back to get a better glimpse of everything in totality, but it's time to get this going. All right, so first things first, you'll notice that there are 0 power tools in this shot. I literally pulled this thing apart with my bare hands. That's how easy it came apart. All the wood was rotted, so it didn't take much effort, not much resistance at all. So here we'll notice the stairs have been taken out completely. A couple of the end posts have been taken out. Brought out the circ saw here to break some of these decking boards in half just to make it into more manageable pieces to move, throw over the fence, and get out to the street. So here in this shot, the deck is pretty much halfway taken out. We're going to get a good look at the ledger board here. Surprisingly, this thing is still intact. It's not really of much concern, at least I would say. Yeah, this thing is almost 40 years old, but this thing is still solid as a rock attached to the house, so we don't have to worry about replacing that. We'll just tack our new joist into that and build everything fresh from it. It'll be a good reference point going forward. Oh, no. Damn! This was obviously recorded before I got that deck cut in half, but just wanted to add that in there for a little bit of humor. Good example of she just don't listen, man. I told her not to go out there, but look at me still being a good husband. I guided her back to safety, told her to walk on the joist, get back in the house before she falls through and bust her butt again. All right, so it is completely taken out here. All of the joists are gone, all of the deck boards are gone, and we have left nothing except for these posts that didn't have to take any machines to or anything. I just whacked them a few times with the hammers and they started to crumble. I'm gonna get these out of the ground here so we can go forward, get it all cleaned up. But again, there's another look at that ledger board. And fortunately, we're in a good situation here, so that thing is still pretty solid, intact to the house with the metal flashing behind it. So we're good to move forward with that. All right, there she is, all cleaned up. Now here's where things start to get fun, the actual building. So what you're looking at there, that string line represents where my beam is going to go. I'm gonna do a 2x8, 2-ply, sister together, and they're gonna be on top of notched 6x6 posts that are gonna be on top and fastened to concrete piers down in the ground. So here what you're looking at now, that orange dot is 12 feet out from the house. The stake was taken back 18 inches, so that way that my cantilever will be roughly less than 2 feet, which is what's allowed by code. So on this angle, it's going to be the same thing from the house to that stake, and from the house beyond the stake is 12 feet, brought back 18 inches to the stake, so that way I'm within code again on that side. Now from the stake to that dot there, your maximum beam overhang for the beam that I'm using can be 1 foot, 6 inches, or 18 inches total. However, I brought that back in 14 inches so that I am within code that way as well. All right, so in this clip here, we're gonna get a good glimpse of how I did the outline from my sonotubes and where the concrete piers are gonna go. So remember, from the house to the stake is roughly 126 inches. I measured out from the house 12 feet, then I came back 18 inches. So I think the math is right there. From the stake over to the center of that dot there is 14 inches. Put the sonotube on it, centered the dot, trace the sonotube out. That way I just have a template of where I'm going to dig these piers into the ground. Frost line here is 24 inches. I went 6 inches below that. So these piers are going to be 30 inches into the ground with an additional 3 inches above grade. All right, first and foremost, pardon the camera angle switch here. It was about 157 degrees outside and I was about 6 beers in. So yeah, I lost track of my recording here, but here are all the holes. They're dug down 30 inches, tamping down the bottom to make sure that the surface is flat for when the concrete gets poured in. Yeah, so you see one hole, gonna get ready to knock out hole, the second hole, and then the third hole, same process. All right, so in this shot, you can see that those holes were dug down completely. Sonotubes were placed in there. I drew the string line back across, got that in place. Remember, that's going to be where my beam is ultimately going to end up. As you can kind of see, these things aren't perfectly aligned, but for me, that's not going to matter too much because I'm not using J-bolts in wet concrete. I'm going to pour the concrete, let it cure, and then put down the post brackets, the 6x6 post brackets. All of my posts are going to be different heights, so it doesn't matter if it's level, but you want to get them as close as possible. All right, so true story here. I poured those concrete piers at 2:30 in the morning. And when you're a father and you work full time, you got to work when you can. And for me, that's usually at night when the kids are asleep and when the wife was asleep too. But I got those concrete piers poured, and this is a week later. I let that stuff cure for 7 days just to make sure that it's hardened enough for me to build on there. All right, so in this shot here, you get a good look at the beam as it is actually installed and in place there. Again, this is a 2-ply 2x8 beam that is sitting on top of notched 6x6 posts. Those posts have been connected to the concrete piers, again, that are 30 inches into the ground and 3 inches above grade. And here we get one last look at the ledger as it is bare and in place attached to the house. Previous deck was 16 on center. I'm taking this guy to 12 on center just to get some more stability, beef it up a little bit more, make sure that you can drive a tank on this thing when it's all said and done. Step back, get one more good glimpse. I'm going to point out here, I messed up on this one wedge anchor, but I got another one in place to get that securely fastened. All right, as mentioned, I got these joists 12 inches on center instead of the previously installed 16 on center. I do a lot of things overkill here, but why not, right? Especially if it's for you. Spend extra money, get it, more stability, more structure in there. Get that thing as beefed up as possible. In the long run, it's going to be better for the longevity of the project itself, and it's just going to be an overall more structurally sound build. So here you see the joist in place now with the joist hardware, the joist hanger hardware back there. As far as the hardware connecting the joist to the beam, just your standard hurricane ties. Again, I did overkill. Not sure if I needed these on both sides, but hey, it's not going to hurt. If anything, it's going to be better for the structure. Keep it in place. We don't have to worry about too much upwind here, uplift here. So this thing is not going to go anywhere. So now I added in the extra joists on each side because I'm going to picture frame this thing here. And another thing to point out here is you can kind of see that the current cantilever on this thing is coming out quite a bit. So it's important to know that, yes, this is going to be a 12-foot deck. Those are 12-foot joists, but each joist is a different length. So that's why you do not trim those things down to your final length until you get ready to do it all in one go. So here's a good look at the picture frame setup, the ladder setup there on the edges. To accept the picture frame board that we'll see in the next shot coming up here. But now we'll look at the other side of this deck just to see how I got it going on that side as well. So now if you remember what I said about not trimming your joist to its final length until the last step where you can do it all at once, you'll see the first reference line where I have the X on the left there. That's where I was originally going to cut this thing. Then I figured I'd give myself a little bit more room, so I drew another took it out about another 3.5 inches to where that that second X is on the right. So I'm going to use that line, connect both ends, draw a string line, and then cut this thing down. So I got everything nice and flush, made one measurement, again, snapped it with a string line from end to end so that everything was aligned, and I got the first rim board in place. Now I'm going to double up on this thing, get the second rim joist in place, but before I do that, just pointing out again, this is going to be picture framed, so that's why that extra joist is there. The guardrails are in place except for the ends, but that's going to come up here in the next frame, so we'll be able to get a good view of that. All right, so here is pretty much the final product, as the framing is completely done here. The blocking is in place, all of the guardrails are in place. You can see the double rim joist is in place. Here we did have an issue with, I guess I didn't backfill, I didn't compact the dirt enough when I backfilled those piers. So we had a little bit of rain. I'm gonna have to address the grading issue here going forward, but it looks like some of that soil did settle. So I just added some more soil, got all that stuff compacted pretty good. So right now I'm okay, but again, I'm gonna have to address the grading issues going forward. But now you get a good look at all of the hardware in place, all of the joists are in place, all of the guardrails are in place, all of the blocking is in place. And let me tell you, this thing is solid as a rock. Yeah, I stepped on this thing just how it is right there. I'm a pretty big guy, and it held my weight. There's no bounce, there's no wiggle room, there's nothing. This thing is not going anywhere. All right, so in this clip, we're gonna see that the picture frame is coming together here. So I got that first board that you see there. I just have it temporarily held in place with the clamps there. You'll also notice the joist tape. That's a controversial thing, apparently. Some people say it's a waste. Some people say it's great. Me personally, I think it can't do anything but help. It's gonna preserve the joist a little bit more. Whereas if you didn't have it, the water would be able to sit. Hey, look, there's the manager making sure the work is getting done on time, and that I'll be in the house on time to play. But yeah, back to the joist tape there. If it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, then don't use it. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. What I tell everybody, don't worry about me, worry about your mama. All right, so in this next clip, we have this thing starting to come together there. So now that I dry fit both of the picture frames on the outsides together, I know that they are gonna work. I'll tack those into place there using some decking screws. And then I started to lay all of the boards. This is just 5/4 by 12 premium decking boards there. Started to lay them close toward the house and then work my way back to the end of the deck there. Butt these things up close as the wood is very soaked with the chemical in it since it's pressure treated. As it dries, it's going to shrink, so it'll create the natural gap there. In this next frame, the beauty is revealed. Look at that baby right there. So you got the full picture frame going all the way around it. All of the deck boards are in place. It's just a beautiful thing. That was just a labor of love. Got this thing all wrapped up. Got the soil compacted down there by the piers. Again, I'm gonna have to address that grading issue just to make sure the runoff for the water, rainwater, goes away from the pier. But look at this thing. All of the seams are nice. The gaps are appropriate. It is gonna shrink a little bit at the gaps, but since I butted them close together, I think the natural seams or the natural gaps that form are gonna be nice and evenly spaced, so not concerned too much there. The 45s on the miters look pretty good there. Only thing of concern that you may think is of concern right now, it's just a gap there. Again, those are going to be covered when we put the post sleeves on, and then we're going to have the post, those little toe kick post bracket thingies. That's going to be in the next video, but all of those gaps around the guardrail posts themselves will be covered. So just look at that. It is a beautiful thing. It was just a great project, a fun project to work on. Yeah, take a step back and just marvel at your work. Have a beer.